Perfect. So now we are live. So welcome everyone and happy World Oceans Day. My name is Lucia. We have last class joining us. Hi there.
It's gonna load.
I'll mute you guys for a sec. Hopefully, there we go. Okay, so where was I? My name is Lucia, and we are celebrating World Oceans Day with Google Hangouts all day long. So we're coming to our last 2 hours of Hangouts. It's been an awesome adventure today. We've met a lot of cool people around the world. And that's what Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants is all about. We love bringing adventure, science, and conservation into classrooms around the world, but in this case, around North America. So we have classrooms joining us from Markham, Ontario, Pelham, Massachusetts, Brampton, Ontario, Barrie, Ontario, and Sellersville, Pennsylvania. So we have a lot of North American classes joining us today. And we are here with Ari. He is from the Oregon State University's Marine Mammal Institute, where he researches how our changing environment affects marine mammal feeding behavior. But that is just the start. So why don't I let you take over, Ari?
All right, thank you guys. And well, it's morning on the West Coast where I am, but I guess it's afternoon for most of you guys. And I thought what I'd do is I would tell you a little bit about myself, and then I'm going to show you guys some videos and some images of how we study whales. Does that sound like fun? Hopefully? Okay, so I grew up on the East Coast of the US in Connecticut, and I grew up right on the water. And when I was just about your age, in grade 1 or 2, I would spend every day of my summer looking in tide pools, trying to find animals and counting them. And then I went on a whale watch when I was in grade 4, and that changed my life. And I got so excited about whales. They were massive, they were huge, they were these huge things in the ocean, and I wanted to study everything about them. And I've been very lucky to have very good teachers along the way and lots of opportunities to study these animals. And so now that's what I do for my profession. So every day we go out and we study animals, we learn about them, and then we try and use that information to teach kids like you guys all the way up from kindergarten through to college. So if you guys are ready, I'm going to take you on a little bit of an adventure and talk to you guys about whales. Does that sound okay? All right. So I'm going to share my screen now. Okay. Can you at least confirm that you guys can see this, or somebody can see it?
Yeah, we can see it. Looks good.
Perfectly. So what this picture is this is an Antarctic minke whale. It's the smallest baleen whale, which means it's only 25 feet long, and it's swimming in the Antarctic, and it's about to go underneath the sea ice, and it's got a little green tag on its back. And that is the thing that we use to study these animals. And one thing before we get started is, if you think about the oceans, there are a lot of really big animals in the ocean. And what's really interesting is that the biggest animals in the ocean, on top on the left, you have a manta ray, and then you have a whale shark and a basking shark and a megamouth shark, and then on the right you have a baleen whale. And what I want you to learn from this is that even though there are a lot of big animals in the ocean, the biggest animals feed on the smallest things. So in the ocean, there's a lot of fish, but there's a lot more small fish or phytoplankton, things that animals that use filter feeding as a mechanism to feed are able to grow super big because there's so much prey for them. So all these different animals on top use just about the same kind of feeding behavior. Now, if you wanted to study things on land, it would be pretty easy. So this is a picture of a leopard. And if you wanted to watch what this leopard does throughout the day, you can go out in a bus or in a van or on your feet, and you can watch that leopard sleep. You can watch it wake up. You can watch it then hunt around and find its prey and take it down and then feed on it. And you can watch all of that happen continuously. So if you were smart, you'd probably study things in the ocean. But if you study things on land, you're pretty smart. If you study things on the ocean, it's a little different. So what this picture shows is about 20 minke whales up at the surface in the Antarctic. It's a wonderful picture, and it shows us that there's animals here, but the problem is that these whales only spend about 1 or 2 minutes of every hour at the surface. And when they're at the surface, they're generally just taking a breath. These are mammals, not fish, so they have to breathe air, and they have to come to the surface to do it. So when all of the behavior of these animals happens below the surface, we can't see there. So we need to come up with instruments or tools or technology to study what whales do underwater. So what you see on here is that same minke whale. That little green thing on its back is one of the suction cup tags that I'm going to talk to you guys about. So here's the technology. So here's a little video of us putting a tag on a humpback whale in Antarctica. You see we slap it right on its back like that, and the whale swims off. On the bottom, you see 3 of our different kinds of tags. These are a lot like the smartphones that some people have or your parents or your siblings have. So what they do is they measure everything that the whale is doing. They go on the whale with suction cups so it doesn't hurt the whale. They stay on for 1 or 2 days, and they measure everything about the animal underwater. How deep it is, whether it's rolling to the left or the right side, how much it's diving, and then some of them even have video cameras on them so that we can see what the whale is seeing, and the behavior that we see on the tag, we can then link to a video and say, yep, we think that looks like feeding, and sure enough it was. So I'm going to show you how we put these tags on in different parts of the world. So here we are in Antarctica. This is a place called Wilhelmina Bay, and I'm wearing a little video camera on my head. The tag is at the end of this really long pole. It's about a 25-foot long pole. And the tag, like I said, has little suction cups in it. So we're going to sneak up on these whales. These are humpback whales, and they're just resting at the surface. We're going to come up to them very slowly and make sure that we don't get too close to them, but just close enough so that I can put this tag on the back of the animal. So I'm going to let this video go, and it's going to show us putting tags on 2 different whales, and then you're going to see what the whales do after the tags go on. Humpback whales are really pretty lazy. So there we go. The tag is on its back. You see the little tag on its back. It woke up, and then it's going to go right back to bed in about a minute. All right, so here we are. We're approaching another whale. So that's the dorsal fin in the back of the whale. You can see the flukes or the tail of the whale just in front of us there. We don't want to go any further or any closer to the flukes. So when this works, it's real simple, and the whales really don't even respond that much. Now this was really cool. This whale, once it woke up, became really curious and came over and took a look at us. And so we just put our little video camera in the water, and you can see the whale. So that's the top of its head right there. You can see it's got some barnacles growing on its chin. And then there's the eye of the whale just coming into view. He's taking a look at us. This was a beautiful view of the whale. It's very curious. It wants to see what we're doing. It's not threatening us at all. And then the best part, there's our little tag that's going along for a ride on the whale. So that tag is going to see everything that the whale gets to see. All right, so here's us putting a tag on a different species. This is going on a blue whale off the coast of California. Now, blue whales are the largest animals on the planet, and they're the largest animals that have ever existed. So a tag that's about the size of a remote control on the back of a blue whale is going to look pretty small. So this whale is up at the surface. It's just come up from a long foraging dive where it was feeding, and it's used up all of its energy, so it needs to breathe. It's out of breath a little bit. So we're going to approach the whale when it surfaces, slap the tag on its back, and look at how massive that whale is. Absolutely enormous. So this whale is probably about maybe 70 or 75 feet long, which is longer than your school bus would be. And you'll see it come up to the surface right there. You can barely see the tag right there. You can see the tag out of the water on that animal. So one of the things that I mentioned these tags have are little video cameras. And those video cameras allow us to see things from the whale's perspective. So this is a tag that's on a humpback whale off the coast of South Africa. So the head of the whale is on the right. You can sort of see it there. The dorsal fin is on the left. And this was an animal that was in the middle of a big feeding group of whales. So we actually get to see other animals, which is amazing. So there's a humpback whale. It's got that long pectoral flipper. It's just swimming. You can see all the krill swimming by. Those are what the whales are feeding on right there, all of those little krill. And I think you're going to see a whale take a big underwater gulp in a moment. There's more whales coming into view. This was a feeding group of 60 or 70 whales in the same place. One of the biggest groups we've ever seen. And we very rarely get to swim with whales or get this kind of perspective of what they do underwater. So you guys are seeing this for just about the first time. These humpback whales are about 40 feet long. They're about maybe 3 cars long. There, it just opened its mouth and fed. You could see as the stomach got really full of water. That was a whale taking a gulp. There's another one. There are whales all over the place here. This is, for me, this is one of the coolest things we can ever see. And we could watch this for hours. So that's the video part of the tag. The other thing that we get off this tag is data on the movement of the animal. So what you're looking at here now is the track of the whale over 4 or 5 hours. And it's a continuous ribbon that's made. It almost looks like a roller coaster ride. And this allows us to see how the animal is moving in 3 dimensions. You can see in this instance, there's a lot of times where the male is making a little bit of a circle. This is a feeding strategy called bubble net feeding that we see. So on the bottom right-hand part of the screen, you can see what the ribbon really looks like. And the arrows are indicating the direction that the whale is traveling. So each of the blue and gray chevrons is 1 second of the whale's motion. The little red and blue things that you can see on the track are when the whale is actually moving and using its flukes. And then the yellow part of the track is when the whale is just rolled over onto its side. So if we animate this, this is what it looks like to be a humpback whale feeding in Alaska. So the whale's at the surface. It's about to go on a dive. It uses its flukes a little bit, and then it descends very rapidly down. This whale is going down about 145 meters, or about 500 feet. And then it does this thing where it kind of kicks a few times, and then it glides. And it kicks and glides. This is a whale that's looking for food, and it's about to find a prey patch. So it's exploring around right now, up and down, and now it's going to kind of get into feeding. It kicks and glides, and it turns, and it goes right back through that same place. So this is a whale that's found a good krill patch, and he's going through back and forth, opening his mouth. This is sped up several times, so all of this would have taken about 5 or 6 minutes. But we speed it up because it makes the whales look like they're a little more interesting. But what this allows you to see is when the animal is using its flukes, when it's kicking, how it feeds, and the direction of travel. All of those things are really important for us to learn. Now, here was a case where we put a tag on both a mother and her calf. So the mother is the track that's in yellow, and the calf is the track that's in blue. And this is really interesting to us because it tells us how these animals learn. So that calf is basically mimicking mom's behavior. When mom goes up, the calf goes up. When mom goes down, the calf goes down. It also shows you about how efficient the animals are at learning. So if you go out walking with your parents, you probably have to take a lot more steps than your mom or dad does because you're smaller. And you can see that up at the surface. The little whale has to kick a lot more to keep up with mom. But they're doing things in very nice synchrony. And this is how a little baby whale learns from its mother, is by following it around and doing the same behaviors as she does. So this is a really awesome way for us to see not only how one whale behaves, but how 2 whales behave at the same time. Okay, so I'm going to talk to you about one specific kind of behavior called bubble net feeding right now. So in the view there that you can see from above, you see that the whale has gone and blown a ring of bubbles that are coming up to the surface and almost looks like a nautilus shell or a spiral. And when you look at what we call the track plot data, you see an animal that's making a couple of spirals underwater and then coming up to the surface. And this is a feeding strategy that's very common on the east coast of the United States, and it typically involves a number of animals. So if we animate this, and now you can see a whale that's actually blowing a bubble net, this is what it looks like. So the whale goes down, she rolls over on her side, she blows 1 ring of bubbles right here, So she's making a ring of bubbles. She's going to come up to the surface and then slap the water with her flukes right there, go down and make one more little bubble net, and then come up to the surface. So this is a really complicated foraging behavior and something you can only do if you're pretty smart. So this animal has figured out a way to blow bubbles that help to aggregate prey. Fish won't swim through a school or a cloud of bubbles. So she's found a small school of fish that she can blow bubbles around and then come up through the middle of and feed on. Now what's really fun is that if you put tags on a bunch of whales, you find out that each animal has its own individual way of doing things. So the animal on the top left, it makes 2 loops, but it does it at the same depth. The next animal over looks like it does 3 spirals as it comes up to the surface. The one after that does 2 spirals, but they're different depths. And the one on the right, it kind of looks confused to me. I don't even know if that one knows what it's doing. But what's interesting is that there is this individual preference for how you feed. And I'm sure some of you guys, if you have brothers or sisters, you might eat a sandwich a different way from somebody else. You might hold a fork differently than someone else. And so when we study animals, we find out that they're not all the same. They do things very differently. And this is important, and this is the message that I want to leave you with, is that in order for us to conserve these animals and protect them from the things that we do as people, we need to understand how they behave, and we need to understand the things that are important to them. So in the image on the upper right, this is a humpback whale, and on the side of that humpback whale, you can see scars, and that's from the propeller of a boat that came through and hit the whale accidentally. On the bottom right, you see the tracks of a whole bunch of different whales over a period of time. And what this allows us to do is to say, this is the location of where the whales are. This is the amount of time that they spend either at the surface or at the bottom or at different parts of the water column. And if you're interested in trying to minimize interactions between boats and propellers or boats and fishing gear, we can tell you the times of day when whales are more likely to be in one place or another. So on the left-hand side of this image, what you see is the coast of the United States. This is Boston. And the part of there that's shaded in different colors, the red parts are where whales feed the most, the blue parts are where they feed the least. And then the lines that you see, those black lines on there, are the shipping lanes. So the solid black lines show the shipping lanes where all of the commercial vessels move through. And you can see that goes through a couple of areas where there's a lot of whale activity, a lot of those very red areas. The dashed line is a proposal that we submitted and said, you know what? If you move those tracks of the shipping lanes just up a little ways, you end up going through areas that the whales don't use very much. And this would minimize the interaction between whales and whales and boats, and it helps to protect whales. The same thing is true for fishing gear. Humpback whales have those long pectoral flippers and a big fluke, and they tend to get caught in fishing gear very easily. So if we can tell fishermen, hey, look, we know that humpback whales feed on the bottom at this time of the day in this part of the world, the best way to keep the fishermen from losing their gear and from whales not getting entangled in them is to simply not have fishing occur at the times when we know that the whales are there. We know all this information because we've developed these new tags that tell us what the whales do underwater and how they behave and the things that are important to them. So the take-home message, the things that I want you guys to think about as it's World Ocean Days today, is that whales are the biggest animals on the planet. They do some really amazing things to feed. They do things in groups. They do things individually. They're really massive animals, and they're important predators. And we use new technology like these kinds of tags to help us study these animals so we know the habitats that they need. We know the behaviors that they need and where they need to do these things to survive. And we can then use that information to help protect whales and other marine animals from human impacts, like ship strikes, from fishing gear, from things like climate change. And the thing I want to leave you with the most is that it's you guys that are this current next generation of young scientists that are going to do even better work to understand the oceans and protect them in ways so that you guys can enjoy them, so your kids can enjoy them, and so your friends can. And it's really important to take the information that we know today and have it presented to you so that you guys know what we're doing and you guys can take a sort of the lead in ocean protection for the years to come. So that's all I wanted to present to you guys. I'll end the presentation now and I'll stop sharing my screen, and then hopefully I can answer some questions that you might have.
Yeah, that sounds great. Thank you so much. That was a really interesting presentation. I really liked the data footage of the way you like to visualize. You can see the whales going down.
Yeah.
It's really great.
Yeah, it's a very good tool.
Yeah. All right, so we can go around to all the classes, and we'll do a round of questions. Also, if there's anyone watching on YouTube, you can also ask questions on there. There's a little chat box on the side. But we'll start with Miss Hohen's class, grade 2s from Barry. So unmute your mic.
Okay.
How long can whales stay underwater without taking a breath?
Well, that's a really good question. So there's a couple of species of whale called beaked whales and a sperm whale that can hold their breath for, get this, 80 or 90 minutes. An hour and a half. Can you imagine holding your breath for an hour and a half?
Wow.
Yeah, wow. I can hold my breath for about 30 seconds. Yeah.
That's a great question. All right, so we'll move on to Miss Patel's class. Do we have a question from there?
Yes, we do. Okay, go ahead, Bonnie.
What is the life cycle of a whale?
Look closer to be a little louder.
What is the life cycle of a whale?
Did he ask what is the life cycle of the whale?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay, so whales are mammals like us. So they grow inside of their mom for a little longer than humans do, for about 11 or 12 months. And then depending on the species, they spend about a year or two with their parents, and then they become independent, and then they're juvenile whales, and then they will start to reproduce when they're about 5 to 6 years old. And then every year for about every third or fourth year, they'll have a calf. And then depending on the species, a dolphin might live to be 40 or 50 years old, but there are some baleen whales, like a bowhead whale, that can live to be 150 years old.
It's very old. Awesome. Now, Miss Hastings Specs, do you guys have a question?
What is the farthest you've ever been on?
I'm sorry, what was the question? What was the
farthest trip have you been on?
the farthest trip? Well, I do most of my research in Antarctica, which is pretty far away. I don't think you can get actually any farther away. I've gone to Antarctica about 30 times, and that's the place where we study whales. And it takes about a day and a half to fly down to a place where we then get on a boat, and then it takes about 5 days on a boat to get down to Antarctica.
That's pretty far away. Then we have Miss Volek's class. You have a question there?
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead.
How much whales have you put on tags?
That's another good question. We don't keep track, but I've been putting tags on whales for about 15 or 16 years, and I would guess that we've probably put tags on about 500 whales.
Wow, that's a lot of whales.
Yeah, and probably maybe 20 different species of whales and dolphins.
Wow. All right, and then we'll move on to Miss Stevens' class. Is that Brittany McDonald?
Yes.
Yeah, boys.
Yeah.
Awesome.
We're both. We have two teachers. How much? What happens to the cameras when they fall off the whales?
Ooh, I forgot to mention that. That's a really good question. So the camera tags, they have some little flotation in them so that when they fall off of the whale, they float to the surface, and there's a little antenna that sticks up out of the water that sends a little signal to us, and we can hear that. It sounds like a little beeping, and we listen for it with an antenna, and then we go and we pick up the tag, connect it to our computer, and then download all of the information.
That sounds great. And then Miss Gonzalez's class, do you have a question you would like to ask? Oh, I don't think we can hear you guys. Try saying something.
Seems a little too quiet.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. It doesn't say your mic's muted, but sometimes it is muted when it's not on the screen. If it doesn't work, that's okay. You can write in the chat box. There's a chat box, a little blue box on the left side where you can type in your question if we don't get the audio working. So it's over on a little blue box, and it pops up on the right-hand side when you get the chat box. Because, yeah, we're not hearing you guys, unfortunately. Can't find the chat box? Usually if you click on the message I sent, it should bring you to the box. It's on the right? Or, no, it's on the left. Wrong. The icon's on the left and the chat box comes out on the right. Yeah, it's kind of hover towards the left side of your screen to see the icons come up.
Should we do another class while they're trying to sort it out?
Yeah, well, you guys hopefully figure out how to write your question. We'll move on. We'll go back to Miss Hohen's class. Do you guys have another question?
We do.
Why can't you get too close to a whale?
Why can't you get too close to a whale? That's a good question. Well, whales are not aggressive, but they are wild animals, and they're very big. And in the Antarctic, the water that we work in is about just above freezing. So if you get close to a whale, and it might get surprised, or it might kind of shake, or it might get scared. And that big fluke that it uses, if that hits the boat, it can flip it over, and it can flip people into the water, and you can get hurt. It can also hurt the whale that way too. So we try not to get too close so that we don't disturb them and that we don't get hurt.
Perfect. Awesome. Ms. Patel's class, do you have another question?
Yes. Go ahead, Arjun. Somebody up to the computer.
How many types of whales are there?
Ooh, good question. So there are about 75 different species of whales, dolphins, and porpoises. But if you're just talking about the big baleen whales, there's blue whales and fin whales and humpbacks and minkes and rights and bowheads and grays and pygmy rights and omuras. So maybe about 9 or 10 species of big baleen whales.
It's a lot of big baleen whales we have out there. Ms. Hastings' Specs class, do we have a question? Oh, they have to leave. They just left. Never mind. It's the end of their school day. All right. Ms. Volek's class, do you have a question?
Where do you find the most whales?
Where do you find the most whales? Man, you know, there's lots of places all around the world that are very good for whales. Off the coast of California, we have a lot of whales. In the Gulf of St. Lawrence, in eastern Canada, you have a lot of whales. But historically, the place with the most whales is the Antarctic. The Southern Ocean is where the most whales in the world typically have been.
Thank you.
You are welcome.
Got some great questions. And then Ms. McDonald's and Ms. Stevens' class.
What's the biggest whale that you have ever seen?
The biggest whale I've ever seen is definitely a blue whale. A blue whale in the Antarctic that I saw was probably 30 meters long, almost 90 feet long.
That is really high. Thank you.
You are welcome.
All right, Miss Gonzalez's class. How we doing there?
Can you hear us now?
Oh, we can hear
Yes.
you. Yay! All right.
William has a question. Come on.
You guys get 2 questions now.
Oh, awesome.
How fast can a whale go?
How fast can a whale go? I've seen minke whales and fin whales go about 20 miles an hour for very short bursts. But typically they move at about the same as like if you were running. But about 20 miles an hour is as fast as they can go.
Say thank you.
Thank you.
And our other question, Michaela.
How
Go down so she can see your face. She can see you. Go ahead. Skip. How much?
How much does a whale eat in a day?
Oh man, these are all really good questions. So we think that a humpback whale probably eats about 500 pounds of food in a day, and a blue whale probably eats 1 ton of food a day.
That's a lot of food.
A lot of food, yeah. Yep.
All right, and we can do one final round of questions to finish it off. So back to Miss Owens. You guys have a final question.
Oh, do we have a final question? Ryan. You have to come up here, Ryan. And squat down. There you go, buddy.
What was the first whale you've seen?
Oh, good question. The first whale that I ever saw was a humpback whale off of Cape Cod.
Nice.
Yep.
Love it.
Miss Patel's class. Final question.
Okay, so what's your question?
My question is, how old can the whales be?
Okay, go ahead and camera now.
How old can the whales be?
How old can whales get? So the oldest whales that we've seen are about 150 years old. Maybe a little bit older than that, but some whales can be really, really old.
Definitely a lot older than us.
Thank you.
And then Miss Volek's class.
How much do the cameras cost that you put on the whales?
Oh man, I don't know if you want to know that. Those tags cost about $5,000 each. So they're very expensive because there's a lot of very technical things that have to be put into them, and it makes it work. So they're very expensive. So we try and make sure we get them back.
And have you ever met Gene Pennycock?
Have you ever met Gene Pennycock? I have not.
Okay.
All right, and then Miss Gonzalez's class. What's your final question? Oh, sorry, I keep unmuting you. And there we go.
Oh, okay.
Okay, good.
How many?
How many whales can you tag per day?
Ooh, good question, and I really like your dress there.
Thank you.
We can probably tag 4 or 5 whales in a day. Sometimes it's very quick. Sometimes it's hard to find whales, but if we have a lot of them around, probably 4 or 5.
Awesome. Well, that brings us to the end of our hangout. So thank you, Ari, for coming and hang out with us. It was great hearing about all the whales, and we had some really good questions from all our classes here. Definitely. So I'll unmute everyone, and you guys can all say goodbye at the same time here.
Bye.
Thanks for hanging
You guys
out.
were awesome.
I hope everyone has a great World Oceans Day.
Got guys.